Hello, hello, hello. I cannot believe we are already on day 3. And so, super excited. We are going to bring things kind of full circle from everything that we've talked about the last 2 days. So, if you recall, on day 1, we really leaned into learning styles, homework, play, and just some of the fundamental understanding around how your kids are wired, even how you're wired in your energy and some things to be cognizant about as a result of that. Yesterday, we went a little bit deeper so day 1, we really looked at type and profile in the human design chart. Yesterday, we added another layer and we started talking about some of the openness and definition, which we're going to also continue a little bit today, really looking at then how you're creating sort of those bookends. So, how you start your day, how you end your day, getting ready for school, bedtime routines, whether you got kids in school or not. This is really about supporting your kids as early on as possible to start creating some routines and some practices that are going to support them as they continue to develop throughout childhood, and also give them tools as adults. Because one of the things, and I didn't say this the last couple days, or I think I might have alluded to it at one point, if you have a lot of openness in your chart, so again, a lot of that white in those centers from what I talked about yesterday, and or you are a projector or reflector in particular, oftentimes people will say to me, I don't really think I'm a projector or reflector. I don't think my child is that, because they demonstrate a lot of qualities of a generator type, especially mani-gens. And the reason for that is because they're picking up all of that energy. And oftentimes, because people haven't been given the tools or given the information around how different projectors and reflectors truly are, there's a lot of conditioning, especially if there's a lot of generator energy in the home. And so if you've got a kid that's really amped up, but you've run their chart and you see that they've got a lot of openness, they're a projector, they're a reflector, know that they are really susceptible to getting a lot of conditioning, to bringing in a lot of other people's energy and amplifying it. And the thing is in all the projectors and the reflectors I've worked with, and even currently, they usually can do that till about the age of 38, 40 before they hit a massive burnout. And so part of the reason that I want to get you in front of this is if you can start creating practices and rituals that support a very open energy child, or a projector or reflector, even a manifestor in a different capacity, but really when we're looking at how they take in the energy, giving them those practices now to know that it's okay to rest, to start being able to discern what energy is theirs versus what is others, and not getting caught up in a cycle where they're probably feeling a bit like a manifesting generator. I see a lot of projectors get into a space where they are extreme type A personalities. They're out there crushing it, getting things done. But somewhere as they get older, and it may be that they have some periods during the adolescence as well, but if they don't understand that about themselves, I've seen many of them fall off the cliff at about the age of 40. And it will be a hard burnout. I have worked with a lot of adults that have hit that 40-year mark, and their burnout is significant, and it can be very debilitating. It can create a lot of illness, disease, etc. And so I want you to be mindful that if you're looking at your chart and you're around that age, or you're looking at your child's and you're like, yeah, I get that, and they feel more like a manifesting generator, after I've heard Candy kind of talk about what that is, look at the dynamics in your family system. If you have a lot of generator energy, know that that child is picking up a lot of that. And so again, those bedtime routines, those morning routines, we're going to talk about extracurricular activities and weekends today. Really, really critical that you have more of that conscious mindfulness to know how that energy is affecting them. And I guarantee, if you start implementing some of these strategies and practices that I've talked about, you will start to see some significant changes. Because oftentimes these are kids that can be very amped up, they can be very hypersensitive, they can be anxious, and they can have this this sense of, I got to keep pushing, I got to go faster, I got to keep up with everyone. And it can start to create that shame cycle and that shame storm. And so I just wanted to offer that as a thought as you're kind of getting familiar with what some of this energy, what some of this means, what the landscape of your family system looks like, who in your family has a lot of openness, and where they might be susceptible for that kind of amplified energy as well. So day 3, extracurricular activities and weekends. So we are going to talk about, I'm going to add one more piece to the equation here, and this is going to be very high level, but on your chart, you will also see a space that says authority. We have a type, we have a certain energetic aura, whether you're a manifestor, generator, manifesting generator, projector, or reflector. You also have a profile, which is sort of that flavor, personality of what you bring in the world. And your authority are really significant because the authority adds a layer for how you make decisions. So if we, real quickly look at the types, a manifestor's major function is to inform and initiate. A generator is here to respond, to wait to respond to life. And so they're constantly responding to things that are outside of them. They get a spark of inspiration, something lights up their sacral. They're here to respond. A manifesting generator is here to respond, then they envision, then they inform, and then they initiate. A projector is here to wait to be recognized and invited in to share what they see, share that wisdom, share that advice. And a reflector is here to really calibrate or mirror back, reflect back the quality of an environment or a system that they are currently in. And so they also, their authority as a lunar authority, I'll start at the bottom, they're ideally need to wait 28 days or an entire lunar cycle, sometimes more, to make big decisions that matter for them. So if you've got a kid getting ready to go to college, and I mentioned this day 1, you're not going to want to have them make a decision quickly. This is something that they're going to probably need several months to be talking out loud and processing and looking at all their options and trying to find the space. So the biggest thing for a reflector is that whether it's the people they're around or the environments they're in, they need a place that feels really good to their system. They need a place that feels safe, and they need a place that really feels like home. It is very important that your reflector feels at home with the people that they are in circles and communities with, and anywhere that they create an environment that they're going to kind of land. And so they need to talk through that. And so a reflector is the only one that will have that lunar authority as well, but they really need a very long period of time, at least one lunar cycle, to make any major decisions. Now, projectors will have several different authorities. One can be the self-projected, mental, or no authority. I'm going to throw those in the same bucket for the conversation today. Yes, there are nuances, but I'm not going to get that specific. Essentially, if you are a projector or have a child that is a projector, that is either self-projected authority, mental authority, or no authority, it means they need a space. They need someone they trust that can create a projection field for them so they can talk through and hear their own truth. They will feel a resonance with their own words and their own voice. They don't need anyone to tell them what to do. They might need some prompting with open-ended questions, but they simply need a safe space where they can bounce and have a sounding board. If there is an ego authority, and you can have an ego authority as a manifestor and a projector, but I will say, truthfully, it's really only a manifestor that can have an ego authority. They need to be speaking from a place that for a lot of people sounds selfish. And this can be really challenging because we don't have a culture that allows for I need, I want, I. first of all, if you have a child that has a defined ego anyway, there's a lot of this kind of language they need to use because it's how they help initiate and activate other people, especially if they're a manifestor. And they need to be able to speak from a place of what they need and what they want that is actually really healthy for them. So you might need to prompt them again with open-ended questions around what they want, not what they think they need to do for everybody else, but what they, and again, in a traditional sense, it can feel like it can be very selfish sounding. We need to really disrupt and change that narrative, because that is the way they're designed to make decisions. They make decisions that are in the best interest for them. In doing that, they actually put into activation what is in the best interest for the collective around them as well. And so it's really powerful. If you are a projector, you likely, however, have a splenic or emotional authority. And I will tell you 50% of the population has an emotional authority. So I'll talk about that in just a second. If you are a projector with splenic authority, you've got a defined spleen, it means you get this, you kind of get a little bit like a generator will get with their sacral, kind of that but it's a whisper. It's a little nudge that comes up one time. It's very quiet and it's very subtle, but it's the sense of, ooh, that feels good. Ooh, that feels yummy. Ooh, I really like that. There's just a little like intuitive whisper that's trying to like get your attention, and it's very much in an instant moment. It's in the now. You don't need to wait, you don't need to analyze. Most projectors need to learn how to listen to that whisper. The only thing you might want to do, because projectors still often need this, is if that hits, talk it out loud to make sure that you have resources available to do the thing showing up. If you're a generator, you either have the emotional, and again, I'm going to come to the emotional in a second, or sacral, which is pure. If you have a sacral authority, it means you can make decisions in the moment. Your sacral goes, and it's that visceral grunt I talked about yesterday. It is literally a yes, no, you know it, and you don't need to be spending time making decisions or processing over a period of whatever. You know, in the moment, if you don't honor what shows up in the moment, it's because you're trying to convince yourself or analyze something based on conditioning, programming, etc. Now, 50% of the population is emotional, which means I'm an emotional authority. We have no power in the now. And that can be really hard. Mani-gens and manifestors really struggle with this because they want to take action right away. I will tell you, if you have emotional authority or you have a child that has emotional authority, two things you really need to know. First of all, they are here to be emotional. They are going to have mood swings. And depending on what is defined in that center for them, will define the quality of the wave or quality of the emotions that they go through. And again, that's some deeper work that we can talk about if you want to take this work to the next level. If they have emotional authority or you have emotional authority, it means you need to ride out that wave. Because oftentimes what happens is we get excited and we say yes when we're in a high, or we say yes when we're in a no to avoid something, when we actually need to bring that wave to a place where it sort of neutralizes. So most people that have emotional authority need to wait a minimum of 24 hours. One of the best things you can teach your kids is for big decisions. This is not everyday stuff. This is big decisions like college, like who they want to date, like big decisions. Have them sleep on it. Have them sleep on it and then check in with their sacral or whatever, however else they're wired. If they're a projector, have them talk it through to check in and see if it's still a yes, and if the yes is calmer. If the yes is still hyped up, you may need to wait more than, I know for really big decisions for me, 3 days is usually my magic sauce. 3 things I want to invest in that are really big investments. I need to give myself that space to make sure. And I'll give you an example. Even when I was doing human design, really getting into some of the fundamental stuff when I was getting into human design, I am a mani-gen. I pivot. I jump into shit all the time. I also have an open head, which means I get inspired by things. Shiny squirrel syndrome. I am notorious, and I have gate 58 in my chart. I know I'm going way deep. I love to sign up for programs and for trainings and books and this and that. And I am notorious for starting it and not finishing it. Very common. However, there was a human design program I wanted to do a couple years ago when I was really working on being in my own authority. And there was a 3-day enrollment period. And so I forced myself, as painful as it was to be patient, forced myself to see what my energy was like over 3 days. I was such a hot yes day one. I was like, I need this. I need this. This is the thing. This is the magic sauce. Day two, I was like, God, do I really have time to invest in that? That's a lot of modules. That's a lot of work. But I'm like, God, I still feel like that. I really want this. By day three, my energy had really tempered. It was still a very clear yes, but it was a yes from a place of I could really, and again, as a Manny Gen, envision how this was going to impact the work that I did. And what was different is this was the first program I actually finished from start to finish. And when that happens, I actually will take 30-minute training video and deconstruct it over like 2 or 3 hours and go so deep. It's one of the reasons why this work has integrated so deeply for me, because when I honor my authority and I honor that emotional wave, when I commit at that level, I am all in, and I'm all in a way that allows me to really learn and integrate the material in a way that's going to be useful and in a way that actually gives me a return on that investment. And so I just want to give you that example because 50% of the population, we have a culture that's like, make a decision now. Right now, I need your answer. And I will tell you, if you or your child are an emotional authority, one of the best things you can teach them is that they need to be able to say, let me sleep on that. Let me get back to you in a couple of days. And if someone keeps pushing them, then the answer is no. If someone pushes them to make a huge decision when they haven't been able to ride out that wave, inevitably, it's not the right time or the right decision for them to make. And so this is a really just something you can offer as you're supporting your kids in their development. So what I want to talk about is extracurricular activities and weekends and bring this full circle. When we talk about the manifestor child, I want you to be cognizant of a couple things. They are not naturally wired for a lot of social endeavors or a lot of group activities. A manifestor, and a lot of manifestors, this can feel very weird to hear this comment until you really understand it. They have a natural repelling aura, which means, and they are actually here to initiate and do things for themselves, and others get initiated by that. They're not here to actually initiate others. That being said, when they choose to be in friend groups, they will likely be the one that initiates the activities and the things and the ideas, and they're the ringleader for sure. And depending on the profile, so that fraction that we talked about on the first day, depending on their profile, you may find that your manifestor really wants to be alone. They may be kind of a lone wolf, and helping them navigate where they feel shame in, I should have a larger friend group, or why don't I want to go hang out with blah, blah, blah. Helping them understand that that's okay, that they're not here to interact the way everybody else interacts. And so it's also not uncommon, say you've got a neighbor kid that's like, why doesn't your kid want to play with me? Because they don't. And they don't need to be in interaction with people. They choose to be in an interaction with people because they really are here to initiate based on what comes through that excites them. And they also, and so this is where there's kind of a balance for the manifestor, they crave sometimes being in those social environments. And so you're going to have to gauge your manifestor child based on their unique energy. There's not really a hard and fast rule. Just know it is not uncommon for a manifestor child to be a bit of a lone wolf, for a manifestor child not to do well in a lot of group activities, including study groups, play groups, big birthday parties. That energy can feel really kind of off-putting to them. And they also have a natural repelling energy, which means if they don't feel the vibe of someone else, that person might be like, why don't they like me? It's not personal. It's just they don't feel your vibe. They're not coming in. And so let them lead what activities interest them. Be really mindful around trying to sign them up for everything. And I see this a lot with manifestor kids. Parents are like, they're so introverted. I need to get them socialized. Hmm. I'm just gonna say be mindful of that. That may not be their energy. Really be mindful about how many activities you put them in and how big the group is you put them in, especially if they have a line 2 or they have a line 5 or a line 4 projector might want to be more engaged in bigger social things, but really give them the opportunity, that freedom and autonomy to sort of lead you through what activities they want to do. It will look very different than the rest of your kids, I promise you. Weekends, depending on their level of inspiration and creative burst, their weekend time could look very different every weekend. If they get really big creative bursts and want to like invent something, you might just need to give them space to be in their room or go on their little nature walk or do whatever and go explore and invent and be in their zone. When they're in that creative burst, especially on the weekends, be really mindful you don't disrupt that flow if possible. You want to give them a lot of freedom for that creative energy because that is how they're designed and that's what they need. That being said, on the flip side, you might find that your manifestor needs a lot of rest. Depending on how open they are and depending on what went on through the week, they might actually need some extra rest. They might need to nap, veg time. Be very careful that you're not scheduling them nonstop. This is true for all the non-sacral types. So anybody that's not the generator types, that you also give them permission sometimes that they can drop out of family activities, especially as they get older. That if everybody's going to go do this and they're really not feeling it and they need to be in their kind of like inventive and when you can leave them home by themselves, that might be a great time to say, do your thing, be in your flow. We're going to go run circles around town, right? Because that really wears them out. And so I want you to be cognizant of that. Help your child inform. Inform is a really big strategy for manifestors, and it's not easy. It can be very difficult, especially for a manifestor child, to find their words to language what they need. One of the best ways you can support them is helping them find the language to inform what they actually need on the weekend that's going to feel sustaining for them. Let them know it's okay if they don't want to play with everybody. Oh my God. Let them know that that's okay. And don't shame them when they want to be alone. Generator children. Again, these are the easy ones. Unless they have a lot of openness, this is the kid that honestly, the more activities, the better. You want them to, this is the kid that unless they're aligned to, then there's some considerations, but even still, this is the kid that needs social time. They need play time. They need to be doing projects and explorations and like, they might be in sports and all the activities depending on how much energy they have because they got to burn it off. They do well this generator child is the or generators in general is the energy that does the best in groups and does the best in teams. They are such a team player. They're the where the manifestor is going to initiate shit, the generator is going to be like, all right, I'm game, let's do whatever. Like they're just easy usually. But they need activities that light them up. So it's not all activities, it's the activities that feel joyful or open up curiosity. So it's either like if you've got a 1-3 generator, for example, you might be sending them to science camp, or they might be going and learning some new skills. Where if you've got maybe a 4-6 generator, they're playing ball, they're out, they're in every social group. You're going to actually have to like wrangle them to get them home. The 4-6 is going to be the ones you're like, when the street lights go on, you need to be home because they're going to just be out. They're going to be social. And the more social they get, the more they get their juice. You're going to have to teach them how to rest a little bit because all of us need rest. But watch signing them up for things you wanted to do or things you think they should do. The activities that your generator child does should really bring them joy. Or challenge them in skill development. Physical activity is highly recommended. They need to burn that off, and they don't often get enough physical activity during the week. The other thing that I want you to, again, physical activity, playtime. I want you to pay attention to when they get frustrated. I mentioned this the other day, and I want you to realize that their frustration is often when they're like, I quit. I don't want to be on that team anymore. But it's actually when they're at a growth edge. So helping them manage how to navigate through frustration is going to be extremely important, especially the more activities these kids are engaged in. And then also help them check in when it's time to be done with something, because your generator child sometimes can get into that people pleasing, shoulding. Well, I got to just see it through, when that frustration showing up because it's actually like they've gotten what they need from it and they need to move on. So again, being very mindful that frustration is a signal. Manifestors, the signal is anger. Generators, generators, it's frustration. Manifesting generators, it's frustration and anger, which often can be impatience. Projectors, it's bitterness. And reflectors, it's disappointment. So if you're seeing these things show up in your kids, they're a signal for you to check in to make sure they're aligned and doing the activities that actually are feeding them versus draining them. Generator kids, this is another thing, especially if they have a lot of openness and they're open like in the center of their chart. Be careful of your kids saying yes to everything, especially if they're a 4-6. Because they tend to want to be people pleasers, especially young generators. They want to make mommy and daddy happy. And so be careful if you have a generator. My brother was like this. If you have a generator with a lot of openness, really helping them check in with their sacral around, is this the right activity you want to sign up for? My brother's an example. He played t-ball and baseball because he thought he should. My brother was not wired to play t-ball and baseball. And so it was only when he finally was like, I'd rather do comic camp or whatever, that lit my brother up, versus sending him to t-ball, where my brother, that was just not his jam, right? So be mindful, because they will take on a role, especially if there's a parent that has had a preconceived notion around, I want my child to play football, or I want my child to do this, or I want my child to be in band. Help your child check in with their sacral. Now, as a young child, before they're really equipped to make decisions, giving them samplings of things is good, and then checking in to see, is this fun for you? Is this joyful? Does this make you happy? And when they say no, listen. Moving on then to the manifestor generating child, a lot of the same, obviously, with the generator manifestor, but some nuances. Again, they need activities that light them up and bring them joy. They also will be the ones that do a lot. Physical stimulating activities are highly recommended, especially if you have a manifesting generator with a lot of definition in their chart. They need to burn off a lot of energy mentally and physically. So the more ways you can get them to do that, where it also takes the pressure off you as a parent to entertain them or keep them busy. Your manifesting generators are literally a little Tasmanian devil who need ridiculous amounts of busy to burn off their energy. And it can be exhausting for parents and the rest of the family. So this is the kid that might be signed up for quite a few things, depending on their profile again. Also knowing they need downtime, because this is one of the hardest things to learn or teach the manifesting generator child, is to slow down and rest. So teaching them that balance is going to be key, and that it's okay for them to be still sometimes. But I also like to say, and especially depending on how they're wired, sometimes they need what I refer to as stillness in motion. So for example, I do better with walking meditations than I do sometimes just sitting still, especially if I haven't had enough physical activity. I need to create stillness while I'm fidgeting or while I'm doing something, so that I still can burn off some energy. And so finding outlets for your manifesting generator child. One, just to give them a lot of busy kind of activities that help them burn their energy, but also takes the pressure off the rest of the family. Man, like I said, manifesting generators can feel like a lot, especially if you have multiple manifesting generator energy in your house, because my guess is their switches are going off at the same time, which means it can feel like a lot of chaos. They can, especially when they're lit up, can feel like a tornado coming through the house. And so teaching them how to manage that in a way that doesn't knock everybody else out is also going to be important. The other thing that I want you to realize when it comes to activities in your manifesting generator, unless they have a specific wiring like I do, which is to complete things, most manifesting generators are not here to complete everything they started. And I mentioned this yesterday, but if they sign up for an activity, they may decide 3 weeks later that they're done. One, check in with their authority. If they are an emotional authority, make sure they ride that wave out before they just jump into something. Two, and I mentioned this on day one when we were doing the heart seat coaching, you may need to create some conditions that or parameters that say this is how much you can, this is what you have available in terms of resources to sign up for things. Make your decisions judiciously. Otherwise, you're going to be tapped out. And if you don't want to do these activities, there's not much more you can do. Like give them budgets, give them frameworks, give them conditions, because your manifesting generator also needs room to pivot. They need to not feel shamed or like something's wrong if after they tried, especially this is extra important if your manifesting generator has a 3-line in their profile or a 6-line, they need room to experiment and they need room to decide something doesn't work and move on to the next thing. So you might look at activities that either are shorter windows or recognize they might sign up for something, and it's really helping them balance how to commit, how to listen to their sacral, and when to allow themselves to pivot. Can be challenging sometimes. And I say that as someone who is a manifesting generator, it can be challenging for me knowing this about myself, and I'm a 6-line. That being said, I know my sister was like that. My sister would wear 27 outfits in a day. She's a manifesting generator. My mom would get so annoyed with her. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, that's actually quite aligned for her. She felt like this outfit in the morning and then another outfit in the afternoon. And there needs to be some freedom to let them be in their, what feels to everybody else kind of chaotic, distracted, can't focus on one thing. That is actually really, especially as they are younger, especially if they are a 3 or 6-line, that is all of what that first phase of their life is all about. It's about experimentation. It's about trying things on. It's about blowing shit up. It's about trial and error. They need room to do that. The other thing is oftentimes their frustration shows up because they're bored. Things aren't moving fast enough for them. So one of the things that's an opportunity for you as a parent is really helping them work on patience. They are going to move at a speed that others are not going to be able to keep up with. They need to realize that others aren't meant to keep up with them. And every once in a while, and this is kind of the bone you can throw your manifesting generator from time to time, is every once in a while, do your best to try to keep up with their pace. It just makes them feel seen. Don't do it all the time. You will burn yourself out if you're not a manifesting generator as well. And watch again your projectors. If you've got projectors who are very open around a very defined manifesting generator, and I showed that chart yesterday, be careful because your projector might actually feel more like a manifesting generator because they're picking up all that energy and they're amplifying it. They're going to need to break out of that aura so that they can feel their own energy and rest and recharge their batteries, or they're going to get depleted and burn out. And you're going to have a really cranky projector child who gets really bitter and doesn't know why. Help them check in when it's time to complete something again. Again, patience, commitment are the things to help them with. Helping them find balance. They're going to pivot a lot. They're going to get bored. They're going to be impatient. They're going to want to change. They're going to change their mind 100 times. They're going to have 27 things going on at once. So there is helping them navigate and finding balance, especially when they're in a family system, because they can't just be that chaotic all the time. And so really helping, but again, and I think we talked about this day one, if they need to stand, for example, while they're eating, maybe it's okay that you let them stand, even though the family's at the table, because that's okay for them. Like, be mindful that you have some flexibility around, again, manifestors and manifesting generators, some of the rules when they need to, but a manifesting generator in particular, because they have that big energy that needs to be burned. I don't do well sitting for very long. I have a lot of energy in my chart. And my mom and I mean, even as a kid, she goes, "Can you just sit still and watch a movie with the family?" And I'm like, "No." So I learned needlepoint with my grandmother so that my hands could do something while I was watching. A lot of times I have my laptop that I'll just be writing or playing or something, because I need things that are outlets. Just please know that your manifesting generator child is not trying to make you crazy. They just need a lot of space to burn off energy, and they need some level of busy and multitasking usually going on for them. When we look at the projector child and activities, this again, be really mindful. Any of the non-sacral defined types, so manifestor, projector, and reflector, this applies to all, but really for your projectors, because of the way they take in energy and how sensitive they are anyway, especially if there's a lot of openness, be very mindful how many activities your kid is engaged in. They will operate like a generator, but it will burn them out. They will keep up, especially if they're around a lot of generator energy. They will condition themselves. They will be conditioned. They will think that their worth is tied to how much they push and hustle. Again, these can end up being type A personality kids. So can the Manny Gens, by that way. But they can be really like hard on themselves to keep up with everyone around them, especially in class, especially on the weekends. Everybody's doing this. There's a lot of FOMO that goes on because of the amplification of energy, but there's also a very, very critical need that they learn early on how to rest and recharge. Because like I said, what happens is this can build up over time. And by the time they get to in their 30s and 40s, they can hit rock bottom so hard it can be extremely debilitating. And so if you can give them tools now to help them manage that, you're setting them up for sustainable success, because sustainability is a huge, huge energy and word for projectors. How do they create sustainable resources where they are not depleting themselves, that if they use energy, they've got to be able to restore it and recharge. They are not wired for sustainable work and play energy, which means they are not wired to go nonstop all day, even if it seems like they can. They need pockets of rest. They need pockets where they are pulled out of that generator aura, and they need to take a nap, or they need to sit and veg, or they need to go for a quiet walk by themselves, or shake out their body, or do some breath work. They need to, and this may be hard if your kid's been in that space where they're like always going and they seem to be fine, really helping them learn how to create breaks in their work, in their play, is really essential. So be very, very careful how many activities you put your projector child in. I'm going to say this again. I said this the other, pajama day, pajama day, pajama day. Cannot stress this enough, that if you do have a child that's going hard between school, where they're constantly around generator energy, and then they do have a lot of activities, really be cognizant that they may need a day where they literally have nothing scheduled. They have no play dates, they have no appointments, they have no chores, and they can be in their pajamas all day long watching Netflix or just laying around, where to everybody else in the family it feels like they're lazy, and they're not. They need days to just, or space, and ideally they need at least one day a week where they can just be. They're not expected to do or interact or anything. They just need to be. It will be one of the best ways they can learn to recharge themselves. be mindful of chores and activity on that pajama day and all the running around. And again, when kids are young, I know that that's not possible. But as they get older, creating opportunities for them to not have to do all the running around, to have different chores that look different than maybe your generator child. Because again, your generator child is going to do very well with the busy activities. Your projector child might be, hey, we need the laundry done once a week. You do it when it feels, and this is kind of some space where you can just bring yourself down. Be mindful of that, because again, your projector child's taking on a lot of energy. Pay attention to the bitterness. The bitterness is a huge signal for deep depletion, for burnout, and oftentimes, especially younger children, it shows up as whininess. It shows up as temper tantrums. It shows up with language that they say, it's not fair. You see, if you're hearing that a lot from your projector child, they are on that edge of being deeply depleted and burnt out, and likely you're going to need that pajama day more than not. Remember, this child is not being lazy. They just, the more openness they have, they need rest. They need lots of it. This is the child that needs to sleep more than the generator children. Projectors are carrying a lot. Again, they're carrying that entire energetic template for the world. And so just recognize that weekends really need to be a time for rest and restoration for them. They need to just be. Which then leaves me to the reflector child. Be mindful of the activities. They're not wired for sustainable energy. Their friend groups and environments that they are engaging in activities need to feel good to their nervous system. They need to feel like home. And it needs to be, because one of the things you need to be really mindful of if you have a reflector child is their ability to get enmeshed in people's identities, so reflectors can be the kids, so can projectors to some degree, more susceptible to hanging out with the wrong crowds, more susceptible to people manipulating them. So be mindful that their groups that they're engaging with have been vetted, and you check in to see how your child is feeling when they're around them. So again, you might not want to just put them in any play group. You want to make sure they feel safe with the kids that are in those activities, or with the person that's facilitating, or even the environment itself. Reflector children, while they take in a lot of energy, they take it in very differently than projectors and anyone else that has openness. But they are very, very susceptible to their environments. Again, they are reflecting back the health of an environment or system when they're in it. So they also will need, and their weekends need to be a time they're picking up all this energy, they're reflecting all this energy, they're calibrating all this energy, they're sort of assessing the health. They need space to integrate. So they need space where they can discern who they are inside of all that energy they picked up. They really struggle with a sense of worth, with a sense of identity, and with a sense of confidence at times, because they do create some of those codependent threads that they think they're the people that they're around, or the environments they're in. And so they need space to really work through understanding who they are inside all of that energy. And so it's really important that they have space to integrate. The other thing, and I've mentioned this before, if you have a reflector child, you may need to have some dedicated time on the weekend that you carve out. And as a Manny Gen, this is not the easiest thing, I will say, but giving them space to just talk, to just be super uber like present, and let them ramble and just listen. They need spaces where they can, because this is how they integrate. This is how they take all that energy and they learn who they are inside of it. It will do wonders to build their sense of self-worth. It will do wonders to help them be more confident. And it's going to require a lot of patience, because they will talk your ear off in a different way than a Manny Gen will, but they will talk your ear off. And they don't need anything other than your presence and your ability to actively listen. And so this is also a child to be mindful of. This may be the child in the family that has the most energy, because again, they're picking up all that energy. If they're really amped up, they may need to move their body, burn some things off, and then they're going to need a pocket of rest. So really checking in to see where your energy levels are for your reflector child is key. But likely they're going to kind of bounce between being really amped up and they're going to crash and burn. And so helping them find some sustainable balances inside of that are going to be really huge. So I get, especially in this day and age, y'all are, the balls you juggle are like massive. What I want you to consider though is what type of ball is it you're juggling? Because here's the thing, not everything is a priority. And are you juggling rubber balls that actually can fall and bounce? Or are you juggling glass balls that if they fall, they'll break? And so I want you to think about, what are the glass balls that need your highest attention? And what are the rubber balls that, you know what, if they fell, they fall? Because I want to stress again that this is not about chasing perfection. It is about choosing presence, and it's about choosing the right priorities for you and your family. And this looks different for everybody. And so it's again one of the reasons why I'm not creating some kind of next step that's a catch-all cookie cutter container for everybody. I am offering a way that you can get direct access to me for us to evaluate what a plan looks like for your family. This is a way for us to build something that is customized to the energy in your family system and provide you as a parent and a leader what you need to sustain your own energy and model alignment, because that in and of itself teaches your kids and gives your kids permission to do the same. And so if you are like, this work is really, man, it's just hit, and you feel seen in this, and you feel like, holy crap, it's just cracked me wide open to see myself and my family in a completely different capacity, and you know this is just scratching the surface, I invite you to set up a discovery call with me. It is a discovery call that says, I'm ready to invest in really looking at what might be, or what would be, a strategic plan, so to speak, for how I approach parenting, how I approach my own leadership, and how I create nurturing and supportive environments where my whole family thrives. And again, when you look at those balls in the air, some of that is helping you discern which of those balls are rubber and which of those balls are glass. And so again, this is, we're gonna spend some time together and look at what's showing up for you, what resonated with you based on what we've gone through in this masterclass, what is challenging you as a parent right now or as a leader, where you need your own support and maybe a different game plan. And then how do we look at your family system, both your individual children, your relationship with your partner, and how that dynamic plays to create a thriving environment for your entire family. And so if you are ready to do that, I'm inviting you to have a one-on-one conversation with me so that we can explore what that customized path looks like for you. Lastly, I want to leave you with this as we close out the 3 days, is I want you to remember, it is not about being a perfect parent. It is about being a present one. And so I want to thank you for being part of this process. I honor the fact that you've been on this journey to really explore a new model for parenting that likely isn't the model you got as a kid. And I get that. Our parents didn't have these tools. Human design is such a powerful tool that really helps us understand the energetics and the mechanics that live not only in our own design and our own blueprint, but also, again, how we interact with others, especially those in our most intimate and family dynamic circles. And so I encourage you, however this shows up for you, that this is only the starting path. If it feels aligned to have a conversation with me, again, I invite you in. Let's explore what that looks like. If not, please take what resonated with you over the last 3 days and put the first pieces in motion to experiment, to explore, to test, and know that you may not get it right the first time. That's okay. There is no such thing as right. Allowing yourself that permission, that grace, and that ability to learn and stay open to new pathways, new tools, new strategies that, again, not only set you up in a place where you're thriving, you are also creating a supportive environment where everyone in your family thrives as well. So with that, I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to exploring with you how we can take next steps. Have a great weekend. Thank you for showing up for you, for your family, for your kids. And I will talk to y'all soon.